I'd like to, of course, welcome this bill. I think it's absolutely necessary that the plight of child poverty is treated with the seriousness it deserves. And the report and the review which provides a basis for this bill is absolutely a step, multitude of steps in the right direction. But I should point out, as UNICEF stated in recent publication, Ireland has made progress in reducing child poverty, but it still exists at a completely unacceptable level across the country. No child should suffer from poverty, not one. Yet UNICEF still found 1 in 7 children are still living in poverty, and more than 1 in 10 have experienced prolonged poverty, defined as lasting at least 3 consecutive years. 3 years without the absolute minimum required to live a life of dignity, to have a fulfilling childhood. It goes without saying that all children should be treated equally, regardless of who they are and where they're from, their colour, their creed. A child deprivation module published by the CSO indicated that children in single-parent households with no one in employment, and children in rented accommodation were most at risk of experiencing deprivation. Those children who grew up in households below the poverty line have a greater likelihood of remaining in poverty for much of their life. A few months ago, the Pobble Deprivation Index showed a rise in people living in areas that are classified as very disadvantaged or extremely disadvantaged. We are, it's often said, living through a period of full employment, yet quality of life in areas that have traditionally been deprived has yet to improve and has, in some instances, worsened. The data revealed that the number of people living in areas classed as very disadvantaged or extremely disadvantaged increased from 143,000 in 2016 to 196,000 in 2022, a rise of more than 52,000 people over 6 years, not discounting the fact that we have had population increases. A disproportionate number of disadvantaged communities are located in my constituency in Dublin Central, some of those where I grew up in the north inner city. These are all areas where there are a greater number of one-parent families, higher unemployment rates and lower levels of education in many parts of the country. These families have often felt abandoned by government and its policies, and that have seemed to fail them generation upon generation. Similarly, children with disabilities and many from minority, ethnic or racial backgrounds are often at higher than average risk of poverty, as our children of lone parents are 3 times more likely to experience poverty. A long-term effects of child poverty are dire: the inability for a household to afford nutritious food, warm clothes and a secure home and a decent education more often than not leads to lifelong disadvantages for a child in relation to opportunities, their future health and their generational quality of life. Last year, at least 13,000 people, almost 4,000 of whom are children, spent Christmas in emergency homeless accommodation. It's the latest shameful figures, however, recorded in the history of the state. With all these statistics taken into account, it's clear that we make changes to our social welfare system to ensure we leave no child behind. It's the absolute least we can do. The Taoiseach recently stated he wants Ireland to be the best country in the world to be a child. I'm not even sure he knows that we're so long away from that being the truth, but it's absolutely necessary that we all band together and collaborate to make such a statement a reality. This bill is a rarity in Irish politics, and that is based on a comprehensive review and report which took the opinions of major stakeholders and experts in the field seriously, and in doing so has made an absolute step in the right direction. I welcome the implementation of the recommendations of the report of the Child Maintenance Review Group regarding the social welfare system. One-parent family obligations to seek maintenance or access social welfare has delayed payments and caused vulnerable families and their children to go without. The new definition of maintenance payments is also welcome, as child maintenance should not be assessed as a means for the purpose of any social welfare means test. Child maintenance payments are required for many vulnerable families in exclusion of the receipt of any other support required for those children. If this section of the legislation is to be enacted, some one-parent families will receive higher rates of payments or new payments altogether, and this is an example of a targeted structural change that should make a real difference to those that need it, and it's incredibly welcome. There are still many pitfalls to the legislation that we must be sure to avoid if any significant improvements are to be achieved. The National One-Parent Family Alliance has expressed deep disappointment with the government's decision to not establish a statutory child maintenance agency or appropriate system, despite the majority vote of an independent committee in favour of its creation. I, of course, second this view. Without such an agency, the rollout of maintenance payments run the risk of inconsistency and incapacity to keep up demand, which could lead to failure to achieve this legislation's goal to alleviate poverty and disadvantage for most at risk. I want to agree with the committee when they say there is the scope for such an agency in the Department of Justice. Without such structures in place, the benefit that this bill hopes to bring may fall by the wayside, as many have during this government's tenure. The National One-Parent Family Alliance also point out that without a child maintenance agency, the dissolution of the Liable Relatives Unit and other aspects of the bill may lead to a loss of child maintenance or parents receiving one-parent family allowance and an increase in lone parents seeking child maintenance through the family court. As the committee's report suggests, when a lone parent's youngest child turns 7, non-resident parents receive a letter saying they need to switch payment of a maintenance from the department to another parent, which leads to a 60% drop in maintenance payments due to non-payment and a 50% drop in the overall amount of maintenance paid after the youngest child turns 7. Without a child maintenance agency, communications with liable relatives may cease to be clear and concise, leading to underpayments and damage to a child's well-being. Due to how overwhelmed our family law courts are on a regular basis, it is disheartening that the state is taking a step back from its role in enforcing maintenance orders. I fear that the delays which could result from this burden on the courts could leave vulnerable families in need at times when they might require support the most. I'd like to ask, despite consultation and widespread approval, why a statutory child maintenance agency has been left off the agenda. As I stated again and again in the contribution, and all my time speaking in this chamber, one-parent families are amongst the most disadvantaged groups in society. The risk of poverty is horrendous reality to behold. Children are the ones who lose out when it comes to the negative effects of mean testing in areas where intergenerational trauma is embedded in families. Everyone involved is hurt by the status quo, and the changes proposed for this bill create a chance for a better system. However, it is of utmost importance that money intended for a child is indeed used to improve their quality of life and prospects. Only by investing in future generations can we interrupt and stop this intergenerational poverty that ravages our communities. It is also equally welcome that the report acknowledges the current rate of housing disregard, just over €95, calling it derisory. It is a joke compared to the current rent and mortgage rates and should be reassessed immediately, as it's leaving countless vulnerable families behind. This debate isn't centred around housing, but it's difficult to stray far from the topic when discussing poverty and deprivation. I'll leave my contribution there. Thank you, that's